Hi, I'm Nick with RatPac Controls, and today we're going to talk about our new product, the Unity Box. Now, what makes this a game changer for our industry is the fact that RatPac has taken about 6 of our SKUs and we've incorporated them all into one form factor. This box is basically a 10 by 1.2, a 12 by 1.2. I have a 6 by 2.4 version of this that I can show you in a later video. A PDB-12 switchable power, a PDB-10 hot power, a PDB-10 dual universe. This box is all of those things. So let's just begin with the basics and what we're seeing here. So first, the box is powered with 100 amp baits. I have an E1018 version for Canada. I can show you that also in another video. Next, we have a 9-port unmanaged switch for Ethernet and RJ45. Next, we have an 8-port DMX node capable of 8 universes and a multi-source DMX, ArtNet, SACN unicast, SACN multicast. We have your traditional DMX, like you are familiar with on our other packs. And we have the ability to wirelessly receive here and transmit out of the node. We have 2 universes of DMX coming out of the wireless portion of this box, and we have 1 universe coming out of the dimmer. That's a total of 11 universes of DMX, individually configurable. We also have a mini opti-splitter included. So these 4 ports here are mirrored off of this one right here. Next, the dimmer. What's cool about this dimmer is that we have 4 possible outputs from these sockets. We have an LED dim curve, we have an incandescent dim curve, we have hot power, and we have switchable power. And the way we control that is through this global switch right here. As you can see, I have it in the incandescent dim curve mode. This light is amber, and all of these lights are amber, indicating that's the mode we're in. If I switch it to the LED dim curve, these lights all change to green. Switching it to switchable power, blue, and hot power is white. But what's really great about it is that each one of these can be individually configured. So if I want a ladder light and an LED dim curve on 1, 3, and 5, I want a few practicals on 7, 9, and 11. I need a couple sky panels to plug in here. I can do 2, 4, and 6 on switchable power or hot power. And I can make 10 and 12 hot power for your blow dryer and your coffee maker. Now, let's talk about the GUI. This GUI, this user interface here, is super simple. It's just like the Airy Sky panel. This knob rotates, you make your selection, you press, select, and hit the back button, and you're done. So now, let's take a closer look at what some of these other buttons mean. So we looked at the 8-port node. How do I configure this node? If you notice, above each port, there's a bump button. A for here, B for here, and so forth. If I want to configure this output, I press the bump button, and I go over here to my GUI, and I see my XLR setup. I can choose the source here. I can choose Ethernet, or SACN. I can choose not set. I can choose DMX in, and I can choose wireless Y. And then to get out of this, I just press the back button, and we're back to the main menu. This indicator light right here is the DMX indicator light, indicating that you are receiving DMX. So if you have your Swiss on plugged in here, you'll see, okay, DMX is coming in. Next, we're looking at the signal strength of what's happening in the wireless portion of this box. So if I have 4 lights illuminated here, that means I have a strong signal on universe X, and same for universe Y. The next button is this config button here for the wireless X. If I press this config button, same thing happens over in the GUI. I get the wireless X set up. Again, I can choose the source. I can choose Ethernet, I can choose not set, DMX in, or wireless Y. Select, back button, and now I'm out. The battery button here. This battery button is here so that if you want to set this box up, if you want to configure this box, prior to having power to the set, press this button. You'll have enough time with the battery that's on board this box to set and configure the box by pressing this battery button. You're just activating the battery. Okay, next button is the panic button. This panic button is here so that if you want to have 100% output to your outlets, you can press it, and you'll see that all of these bump buttons above each outlet have turned red, which means we're at 100%. To get out of there, I can just hit the reset button, and we're out. The next button I want to look at is this local config button. This local config button here is just for the dimmer. If I press this, again, I can go in, I can select the source. Same ones, Ethernet, DMX in, wireless Y, and not set. Select the back button, and now I'm out. This button right here is the reset button. A quick press on this reset button will reset the dimmer. A long 5-second press on this button will reboot the dimmer like you're rebooting your computer. But your IP settings will stay the same inside the GUI. If you want a more serious reset, you hold this back button and this select button for 5 seconds. You will then factory reset the whole box and go back to its original settings, IP addresses and all. Now let's look at these lights right here. This first power button means I have 120 volts AC coming to the box. The next indicator light is the DMX light. When this is illuminated, it means that I have DMX coming to the dimmer. And lastly, this OT means over temperature. When this light comes on, it means the box is experiencing an over temp situation and will turn itself off until the temperature is regulated and back to normal. Now, one of my favorite features of this box is the copy function. So let's say I have DMX coming out of here and I want that to match what's coming out of here. All I have to do to copy what's happening here and here is press and hold this and press single press of the next port over. You can see now they're both white. Now port A and port B are outputting the same information. Can do it again with port C. Port A, port C. Boom. They're all white. So now we go down to these. These are obviously your 10 amp breakers that are connected to your outlets here because we're at 1.2. And then right here we have two 5-volt USB ports. These ports are courtesy ports so that you can plug in your Swisson, you can plug in your iPhone, your iPad. And finally, there's a USB port on the side of this box. This port is for firmware updates. So you don't have to get inside this box with a screwdriver. You can just put a USB stick in here and update your firmware. So next we have these wireless antennas right here for wireless X and wireless Y. We've got another one over there. These are recessed to protect them when they're not in use. You can put them down. People complain about them getting broken off and lost, so we try to solve that with this recessed area. And finally, these buttons here are also bump buttons for each outlet here. If I press this bump button, I get 100% output out of this socket. So if you want to test and see if you have power to the fixture, you can bump the button, check it out, turn it on, turn it off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get into the GUI by using any Apple product, whether it's a MacBook Pro, an iPad, iPad Pro. Of course, it will work with a PC of any kind. It's really simple. All we do is we take an Ethernet cable like this and we go into one of the ports. It doesn't matter which. I'm going to take this guy right here. And then we need an adapter like this that has an Ethernet in, and in this case a USB-C on the other side, and we go right into our laptop. The same can be done with your iPhone with a lightning connector and boom. To set up the GUI to communicate to your laptop, iPad, iPad Pro, PC, first we have to go into our settings here. And basically in a static mode, this is what comes out by default. 192.168.1.201. In the subnet mask, we have 255.255.255.0. And in the gateway, it's 192.168.1.1. That is your static settings that will need to match what's happening on your computer for your computer and the box to talk to each other. If your preference is to use DHCP, this box will auto-configure and auto-assign accordingly. Okay, now that we've got you set up properly with the GUI on the Unity box, we need to set up the IP address settings on a PC, a Mac, an iPad, whatever device you happen to be using. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to go up into System Preferences. We're going to select Network. And as you can see, Network comes up, and because I've already plugged in the box, the Ethernet port has already been connected, so that's here. The location is automatic. The configure IPv4 is set to manually. Now the IP address. The IP address has 3 octets that are very important. The 192.168.1, the same octets have to match what's happening here on the router. This is called the gateway also, not to be confused. So the 192.168.1 has to match. The subnet mask also has to match what's happening on the Unity box, the 255.255.255.0. Once we have all that properly configured and set up, we go to our browser. Now, in the address bar of the browser, we need to match what's happening in the IP address settings of the Unity box, which is 192.168.1.201, and we hit enter, and boom, there is our GUI. If I bring up my system preferences, you can see how these octets are matching these, how the subnet mask is matching properly, and now we're inside of our GUI. Device settings happen here. We can set it to static or we can set it to DHCP. We have our DMX protocols we can select, whether it be ArtNet, SACN, Unicast, or Multicast. We can set up our wireless receive, unlink, link. Over here in the Universe Config button, we have our device settings, we have our source settings that we can make. Universe colors. Now this relates to the node. So if I want to change the first port in the node to a different color to denote a different universe, I can do that here. Here are my choices. And as I do that, it happens on the Unity box. And then finally we have our 12-channel setup. This relates to the dimmer. And there's your quick tutorial on how to get your GUI onto your iPad, iMac Pro, or PC. Again, I'm Nick from RatPac Controls, and if you have any questions about the Unity box, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to help if I can. If I can't, I'll get you an engineer who can. Thanks again. Have a great day.